So you hear quite often in the self-protection circles the importance of awareness. And when we talk about awareness, we talk about it via models of teaching. So we talk about Cooper's colour codes and of course the OODA loop, which are reference models for understanding awareness in a habitual sense when you're out and about. What the awareness is geared at in a self-protection sense is having the ability to recognise anything that could be potentially life-threatening to you, regardless if that's a criminal or whether that's a situation or whatever it is. So awareness would be being switched on so that you are likely to see what's going on around you. Does that make sense? But awareness by itself is not enough. You need to have an understanding of what you're looking for in terms of. So imagine you took the wrong turn, you're in a bad neighbourhood. Imagine your car's fucking broke down, you've got to go and find a phone box, something like that, and you're in a situation where your instincts are telling you something's wrong. Well, you'd be switched on and alert and aware, which would mean you're most likely to see somebody before they see you. You're most likely to recognise anyone in your vicinity, and you're most likely to recognise if somebody is behind you. This would be an example of awareness. But what must accompany awareness is an understanding of what you're looking for, and this is called pre-threat cue recognition. So if I said to you, walking down the street, oh, there's 3 guys over there walking this way, you would be aware and you would look and you would say, oh yeah, okay, there's 3 men walking towards me. Well, that in itself doesn't mean a fucking thing. It's just 3 lads walking down the road. They're probably chatting, having a chin wag, and they'll walk past you and won't even notice you. But what if I said to you, the 3 guys walking towards you here, the one in the middle, let's say he's the alpha status male, sends you a hard stare. And then he communicates with his 2 compadres, and then they all give you a hard stare. So think about what I just said. Hard stare, pre-threat cue. Group communication amongst each other, pre-threat cue. And then they all give you a fucking hard stare. That's an example of pre-threat cue behaviour. Does that make sense? In the context of that, how much more fucking information do you need to know that you've potentially got a problem? And if you see that from 10, 15 feet, you can turn and run. And that's the purpose of awareness and pre-threat cue recognition, because it leads to avoidance and escape. Does that make sense? The best self-protection of all? Don't fucking be there. But what's going to allow you to do that is to have the ability to see it. So that skill is called pre-threat cue recognition, and it's the compadre or counterpart to awareness. Now, 2 elements that relate to that. There is outside of contact range, so let's say 5, 20 feet away, where you recognise pre-threat cue behaviour, and then there's pre-threat cue behaviour where the subject is right in front of you, which of course is more precarious because now you've got no opportunity to escape or run. So first of all, I'm going to give you some examples of things that could tell you that there's a problem from a distance. So I've already given you one, and that one would be if 2 people or 3 people or even 1 person is paying too much attention in what you're doing and they're looking at you with sinister intent, then that's an example of pre-threat cue behaviour. But what you might call a red flag, an indication of danger, right? So from a more distant range, take some notes for you. Right. Imagine what we call a change in status. So you've got a guy, he's hanging around, let's use an underground car park as an example, that's a classic one, right? He's got no car, no keys, no bags for shopping, but he's hanging around in an underground car park. Most people wouldn't notice this man. But in this situation, he's in a place where it kind of looks like he's got no reason to be there. This is called no cover for status. Do you understand? Yeah or no? Somebody give me a hand up? Right. So if you see someone lurking around outside of a school in a fucking overcoat, I mean, that's dodgy, right? What the fuck is he doing there? So you want to be able to spot these things. There would be no cover for status. Another is change in status. So let's say that this guy's just leaning by a wall, and that's what he's been doing for the last 5 minutes. So his current status is leaning against the wall. And then you walk past, and his status changes. So as an example, come here to me. He walks past me here, and then I fall in behind him. and start following. So there's a change in status. The only thing that's created that change of status is your presence. Do you think it would be useful if you was aware of that or not? Yes, good, right. So imagine this, if somebody does fall in behind you, what's the classic you do? You cross the road. If he crosses the road, now it deserves your fucking attention, because now you're confirming. So it's become street smart. So whenever you go out and about, learn to use windows for reflections. So if you're walking past a shopping centre or something and it's all windows, use the window reflection to see what's behind you. If you are in a washroom, use the mirror to see what's behind you. If you're approaching your car, use the reflection in the glass to see if there's anything behind you. Learn to use reflections to recognise rather than having to stop and physically turn. Right? Another example would be when you turn a corner. So imagine this is a blind corner and there's an adversary waiting here to attack the first fucker that walks around the corner. But if I just step blindly around the corner, it's on me. There's no time. So the idea would be any corner that you take it wide. Go wide round the corner. Now you get more observation, more time, and time creates opportunity to do something. Does that make sense? Yeah, so that's a couple of examples of seeing it from a distance. What I want to talk about is when it's in front of you. So let's say that you're out and about and somebody's approached you with some kind of introductory dialogue. Like I've talked about before, the two ranges in the street are going to be arm's length conversation range, where we meet and greet. This is where all human interaction takes place, including violence, less than 2 feet. If it's not that, then it's much closer, what we call in your face. And that's often dictated by a loud, crowded, noisy environment. In the middle of a sporting event, a nightclub, or ego. So ego driven, where the guy's like bucking up, he's coming forward, and he's trying to pressure you into a corner, invading your person's space. So at this kind of arm's length range, there's more visual intel than there is right up in front of you, like so. So I'm going to give you a couple of pre-threat indicators that could indicate you've got a problem right here. One is what's called a definitive weight shift. So somebody's talking to you, they're animated, they're pointing, they're gobbing off, and then all of a sudden they just put 1 foot back, kind of gross motor-like. This is often referred to as stancing up. And what it's actually doing is setting the hips so that they can hit you. And the most common way that you'll see this, because 95+% of the population are right-handed, is that during the conversation, they'll shift this right side back. Any kind of obvious definitive shift in weight, if the person is right in front of you, you need to be fucking aware of. You know? And that definitive shift in weight could be very gross motor during a conversation. But you fucking what? As I just step back aggressively like so. This is an amateur way of doing it, but nonetheless, it's weight shifted. Or it could be deceptive, where as the person shifts weight, maybe they misdirect your attention. And what's your mate got to do with anything? Where they point and misdirect as they shift weight. So a definitive shift in weight, setting the feet, should be noticed. Does that make sense? Now, a lot of people say, when you're dealing with somebody that's confrontational, aggressive and violent, where should you look? Well, if you look into the eyes and you're drawn in, particularly if he's animated and aggressive, and let's say, I don't know, he's got a face like a robber's dog, or he looks like a pit bull looking pissed off a stinging nettle, there's a good chance that you're going to get intimidated by his ugly appearance or his hostile appearance. So one idea is to look soft focus at the chin. So I'm not staring at the chin, I'm just soft focused at the chin. And intermittently I might make eye contact. I'll make it and break it. Which, if I'm trying to be deceptive to de-escalate, looks kind of passive, because that's how I want it to look. But my point is, if you look into the eyes and there's this harsh eye contact and he is hostile looking, your vision will tunnel very quickly. And when it tunnels, you're in a sense being psyched out. So if you're looking through a toilet roll tube up here, when he shifts weight, you won't fucking see it. And the key standalone thing that you need to be aware to look for is what we call any disappearance of the hands, right? So if the hand suddenly disappears from view from the front, right? So let's go with 85% are right dominant. The main quadrant where people carry weapons is the waistband area here. They'll either carry it in front, covered with a garment, right here, or they carry it round the back, or even in the back pocket, like so. But it'll be quickly available. And quite often, when the hand disappears to reach for the weapon, that will accompany the weight shift. So weight shift like this is one thing, but weight shift with hand disappearance is quite another, because that's a pure likelihood now that I'm striving to access or get a weapon out. Does that make sense? The best advice would be, if you're at close quarters this way and the person's not allowed you to leave, so you've tried to leave and they've stepped in front of you, and now all of a sudden they shift weight and the hand extends behind the back, you want to be preemptive now. Don't wait for confirmation that they pull something out shiny to stab you with, because if you do, that confirmation would come in the form of you being fucking stabbed, and that's too fucking late, right? So the key thing that you'd be looking for is what you call elbow pop, where the elbow pops out. Because I might reach for this tool without shifting weight. I might, because you people that know what they're doing will take your attention. So as an example, let's say I'm panhandling him for money, and I might lean across and just tap his pocket. Lean across and tap his pocket. I said, come on mate, you must have something, give me some money. What have you got in here, bro? I might say, we've got this pocket. Now I've already pulled my blade, now I'm going to stab him. So criminals' use of deceptive kinesis to hide what they're doing is exceptionally better than yours. So the chance you've got dealing with that is to recognise it. So what I'm talking about here is elbow pop. So if I reach for this blade, my elbow pops before my hand disappears. If it's in the front, then my elbow pops before it reaches in to get the blade. If my blade is inside a pocket of a jacket, my elbow pops and the hand disappears. You want to recognise any time that the elbow pops outward, because you know that's not good for you. And it's there that if nothing else, you should push the person away, make a separation, and demand that he shows his hands. Show me your fucking hands. Show me your hands. You know, this you want to not allow the person to be able to deceptively get the weapon into their hand. The other thing that you need to be aware of, if somebody approaches you with hands in the pockets, well, there's a good chance that if hands in the pockets, the hands is already on the blade. And this is classic with the old hoodie and the hoodie kind of pockets, like so, where I could easily have my hand on, or both hands, in a weapon each and you wouldn't see it. So to recap, be aware of any kind of definitive shift in body weight. Be aware of the elbows popping or the hands disappearing. Finally, any position of the hands that are empty with nothing in them usually show the thumbs. Because as I showed you before, I could have this blade in my hand, you can see my hands, but you can't see the blade. So most positions where they show the thumbs, you want to see both thumbs and all fingers. Because criminals will thumb the blade, like so. So you can see the hand, but you can't see the blade. Or they'll cup it, like so. So it's cupped. So you can see the hand, but you can't see the thumb. Or they will palm it against their body. You can see the hand, but you can't see the blade. Commonality to all of those is you don't see the thumb. So you need to be aware if you recognise that. And of course, if I walked up to you like this with one hand behind the back, and you don't do something about that as a UC practitioner, to be fair, you deserve to get fucking stabbed. Not really, but you should be fucking aware of it. Does that make sense? So you always want to be aware of any shift in weight, any pop of the elbow, or any skewment of the hands in pockets, or any funky weird positions of the hands. The only way that you are going to see that is if you actually look for it. So don't be drawn into looking at the face, look at what the hands are doing. When somebody walks towards me that I don't know, if they're trying to get my attention, I'll quite often quadrant them into four. So I'll, first of all, dissect them down the middle and then cut them in half. I'll imagine that they're in a square. First quadrant I'm looking at is face. I'm looking to see if they've got any facial demeanour that suggests they've got intent or bad intent. I'll also look to see if they're looking behind them or if they look a little bit nervous, because this head on a swivel looking behind is a clear indication of deception. Then I'll scan down to where the hands are immediately. Can I see the hands? And finally, if they're close to me, I'll look at what their feet are doing. Are they bladed? Are they square? Are they just stood in a natural position with hands down, showing me their hands? This is the natural everyday position. Does this make sense to you all? Yeah? Right. Final thing I want to talk about is if somebody that you are communicating with is excessively friendly. So they're excessively friendly, trying to close your space and be touchy-feely. So they're too nice. Be aware of that. Conversely to that, if they're exceptionally hostile and nasty and quite aggressive and curt, be aware of that. Now, somebody displaying aggressive body language is fucking obvious to a blind deaf person. You should be able to recognise it, right? Whereas somebody being deceptive and pretending to be your friend is less likely able to spot any deceptive, bad, ill-ful intent. The fact when you have people that are trying to be aggressive in order to intimidate you, the final thing that gives it away as a precursor to violence is how they could speak from disjointed speech where they're talking a lot of continuous words to becoming monosyllabic. So what do I mean by that? If somebody's being aggressive with you in dialogue, so imagine, what the fuck are you looking at? You've got a fucking problem. This is about fucking you and me. Do you want to go there? This kind of thing. They're giving you that kind of dialogue, continuous, disjointed with profanity. This is often what's called the interview. And it's a probe, and it's designed to see how you respond. So what the ideal response to that for them would be, you go, what? Me? Fuck, no, I got no problem. Straight away you show that you capitulate. That's what they're looking for. It shows you a soft target. Conversely to that, if you're cool as a fucking cucumber and you don't react and you don't have any kind of facial expression, you're just poker-faced, then they're much more likely, if they're not a serious player, and by serious player I mean they're a sociopath, they're much more likely to continue with this disjointed speech to try and interview you until they can wear you down, kind of thing. Another reason that a lot of people will use disjointed speech, aggression and this verbal display from a distance, and this comes from 15 years of being a doorman. Trust me, you learn to recognise and read people. You learn to recognise people that are serious players, and you recognise people that are just full of shit and hoping that you're going to capitulate. But what they usually do is touch the toe in the water somehow to see how you respond. So you want to be cool and calm, no facial expression, and just interact. As soon as you take this, you approach me, you'll notice straight away my hands come up and they're in a natural position of preparation. But what's also accompanied that is a very natural weight shift. So quite often they'll do this and give it away, but I'll put mine in place as soon as you approach. So it's already here, so you don't see it. As soon as my hands come up, they're lining you up. This one is getting my range, this one is getting ready here to put you to fucking sleep should I need it to. But my position is not aggressive, it's unobtrusive and natural looking, and quite often intermittent. You won't notice it. If you're hostile and you come forward or you slap my hand down, I will push you back and now take my offence to a conscious level, where now I'm creating an obvious verbal, physical boundary. It's now we'd employed a two-touch or the one-touch rule, which means if you come forward and force me to push you back, you are telling me your intention. You are telling me that you want to close distance so you can invade and violate, right? If you try to slap my hands down like so, here, you're telling me that you don't want this barrier here. This is a clear pre-threat indicator that you want to close distance so you can become assaultive. Back in the Jeff Thompson days, we used to have what's called the two-touch rule. Never allow anyone to touch your fence more than twice without taking action. So if I force to push you back, or you've slapped my hand down, now I'm going to preempt. I'm not going to keep pushing you back, because the fence only lasts temporarily. You might just shut my hands down and hit me now. So we have a two-touch rule. Because anyone that I tell you that knows me, I'm not really a people person, I am working on it. I had a one-touch rule. Whereas if I pushed you back and told you to stay there, you want to listen. Because if you violate that and come forward now, I'm taking you off the fucking planet, simple as that. But the bottom line is, if somebody's probing your hand and coming forward and constantly making you push them back, you should preempt now, because that's a clear pre-threat cue. Final reason that they will interview is as a means to pluck up courage. So quite often, somebody who's a bit of a bully will try and intimidate you so that you capitulate, and then use violence because it's safe for them to do so. But quite often, some idiots could be with somebody else, and for the purpose of ego gratification, they'd rather risk picking on the wrong person and getting a beating than lose face. But before they will actually operate or do anything about it, they have to prepare themselves psychologically and emotionally. And what you'll see is, when they start talking from a lot of shit and telling you all this, telling you all that, to becoming monosyllabic, where they just go, yeah, and, so, where they drop to single syllables. If you hear somebody from continuously talking, becoming monosyllabic or dropping to single syllables, hit them now. That is a clear indication that this conversation is coming to an end and they are getting ready for the physical assault. If you wait beyond this, the final cue available to you will be distance closure when they're hitting you. So if somebody goes from talking a lot to single words, that is a clear indication that they've prepared themselves, they're trying to psych themselves up, and now they're almost ready. Does that make sense? Yes? Right, so that's a little bit about pre-threat cue behaviour. You need to know your enemy, and you need to understand yourself. Right, if you're just on mute now, we'll do a couple of quick questions, and then I'll let you good people get on.